Hello everybody, how's it going? It's Ben. Welcome aboard the Bonny Rackham for Season 3, Episode 8. A fantastic episode. I feel like I'm having a very big deja vu moment. I literally recorded this episode earlier, but my mic wasn't set up properly, was it? And I just had no audio. I went to edit it and I was just, The feeling. It's not happened before. I've never goofed like that before, not just for this, but for anything. And yeah. Oh well, it's what it is. We go again. I've got to do it in the same day because I just don't really have another time frame. So yeah, I hope I capture the enthusiasm as is the first time. I will do my best. Let's get on with it. It won't matter to you. You don't know all that. So, well, you do now. But, yeah, let's crack on with this one and let's get a title sorted.
Get us underway.
Okay, so yeah, for a title, I think I'm going to go with part of a quote from Madi from this episode, the hard thing. Doing the hard thing over the easy option, I think that's quite a good thing for this one. Madi and Silver's scene's a big part of that. I can include Max in this and the line she's now fully crossed in committing to Woods Rogers and Eleanor's cause. Ranger crew and Flint executing this rescue mission, and Eleanor doing a hard thing in approaching Hornigold for help and then talking to Woods Rogers candidly about her concerns on seeing Vane. So yeah, let's get a quick summary and a rating sorted.
First item.
So this one is written by Evan Bleiweiss, I think that's how you pronounce it. Another new name at this late stage. And it's directed by Stefan Schwartz, who we last saw in episode 3, Doldrums, fantastic episode. Yeah, he's got a few under his belt now. So yeah, a great almost part 2 episode to follow on from the previous, it feels like. Madi and Silver continue to bond, but trouble between the two crews tests Madi's willpower. The bulk of this episode is focused around Jack's rescue mission. Vane, Flint and Anne anxiously await news. Jack and Woods Rogers continue their battle of wits on his armed escort to Havana. On both hearing news of Anne's easy surrender, Jack is hopeful while Max knows something is amiss. With no help from Woods Rogers' man Chamberlain, Eleanor must turn to an old enemy for support. And on the episode's end, she has some home truths for Woods Rogers. But is she being truthful to herself? Insert one of the best action sequences ever in the middle of all that, and we have a fantastic episode to talk about. Another close to perfection strong one. It's a 9.6 rating for me, this one. So yeah, let's get into the episode and the characters deep dive now.
Next item.
So, because they're kind of separate from what's going on in the main bulk of the episode, I'm going to talk Madi and Silver stuff first. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be another one where I'm going to hop around with the characters a little bit more, because while there is some great character stuff to discuss, this is also a very plot-heavy episode. And yeah, as usual, it will sort of work itself out and make sense, but it might not be as character-tidy as usual if you're a skimmer. Let's just get started with Madi and Silver on board the Walrus. Really nice opening scene with them both. So clear to see there's something really building here. The writers, they're not rushing it though. Nassau shore is just visible in the distance, and Silver explains to Madi how they're able to stay out of sight of anyone checking the horizon on Nassau. And yeah, she seems interested and keen to learn all things nautical. A woman that wants to be knowledgeable on her surroundings. Madi's always willing to learn and adapt. So yeah, the story of what went down last night has been retold all over the ship. And Madi points out what the men think of him is evolving. She reiterates what he spoke to her about in terms of his darkness and becoming like Flint. And he asks if she's concerned. And Madi, speaking truthfully, says if the alliance can't hold, then it will all be lost. To reassure her, he tells her that last night wasn't an experience he wants to repeat. A possible lie to soothe her, I think, after his conversation with Flint last episode, confessing it felt good. So, therefore a lie to himself as well, I think. He says his mind is clear though. It's at this point that Dooley comes to inform him quietly that there's been some trouble. On to that in a moment. So yeah, Madi, she's still getting a feel for Silver, still trying to work him out. She's seen both his vulnerable side and now she's hearing a little bit more about his dark side. And while she's definitely catching some feelings, Madi's priority, as we're going to see, is this new coalition and her men. And Silver's about to understand and see firsthand how well she handles herself when it comes to leading conflictions with emotions. So yeah, Silver comes across the scene. One of Madi's crew has been severely beaten and he's tied up. I don't believe this poor chap has been named at any point. But Mr. Dobbs is the culprit on Walrus' side. As we saw a couple of episodes ago, some anger being built up since their capture on the island. This guy, you know, we learn he played a part in the death of some of the Walrus crew. After being tortured, I believe he sent a few to their graves. So yeah, Mr. Dobbs' anger, it isn't from nowhere or entirely unjustified to play devil's advocate. But with handshakes given by Captain and Queen and this new alliance underway, it's just no longer the time and place for him to be settling old scores. So Silver and Dooley debate what should be done now, and Dooley suggests evening the score. But Silver, of all people, knows the story is going to get out one way or the other, so he brings Madi in. I don't think the Silver of old would ever do this, you know. I think he'd think of the way out of this, you know, on the quiet with not getting anyone else involved. So yeah, maybe he is really trying to fight against this darker side a bit and bringing Madi in. And maybe he's just being both a good leader and business partner and getting her involved as well. And because he's coming to respect her opinion. But of course, as we're seeing a little bit, there is a little dark spin on this. So yeah, Madi is clearly upset on seeing one of her guys in that state, as she'll talk about with Silver in a bit. Regardless of Dobbs' intentions, whether it's purely revenge or some prejudices and racial motivation in that beating, her next decision is hard for her emotionally. But yeah, she's about to show why she's such a strong and powerful leader. She's prepared to take the emotional hit for the bigger picture. Silver points out Dobbs, he's the sole man responsible. He suggests they bring the crew together and they punish him. But Madi knows, I think, that just means they do this all again sooner or later. Another man, another beating, another day. Just goes on and on and on, never becoming the one force that they just really need to be. She asks for a knife and Silver hesitates understandably, says he can't give it to her until he knows exactly what she's going to do with it. And yeah, we get a bit of a tense moment, but he finally takes a leap of faith and he hands it over. And yeah, the first time you wonder, what is she going to do? Is she going to free him? Is she going to kill her man? Is she going to maybe kill Dobbs? But to me, it was always clear she would free her guy. She's too smart for the other two alternatives, is Madi. Yeah, and as he gets up and she goes to leave with him, Silver sort of blocks the door. Is like, well, you know, I need to know what you're going to say. And she says, matter of fact, that she will tell her men he acted impertinently towards her and was punished by Kofi, which answers my query from last episode. Kofi is the big fellow that accompanies her. And yeah, and as a little sort of Madi kind of get your fucking house in order to Silver a little bit, you know, she says, when I speak, my men listen and do as I say. Yeah, Madi, she is a badass. So yeah, later on deck, when things have calmed down a bit, they chat again. It's not frosty exactly, but Madi is weary now, I think it's safe to say. Weary of who she's joined forces with, not just two conflicting leaders, but the men under their command as well. And yeah, let's not forget she doesn't really know Flint yet. And yeah, she's seen a dark side to Silver or heard about it. And she saw he was ready to sort of play tit for tat to even the scores. Not the smartest solution considering their situation. So I think she's taken just a small strategic step back from Silver in this moment, just for this moment. But she's not doing it the way Flint would, with no explanation. She's not just going in cold. She's smart and brave enough to voice her concerns in this moment with him. She's respectful enough to give him that. But yeah, she's angry and frustrated in this moment, understandably enough. She has great respect for the man that was beaten. She's angry at herself and the situation, and that she had to tell her man to firm it, you know, to take it on the chin and just let it go. His family was killed by slavers. Those racial lines coming into play again. Tells Silver she held restraint not to let him go and get his revenge. But she says, where does that lead us? Again, yeah, she's smart, knows it just leads to more fighting amongst themselves that will just keep escalating and keep happening, dividing them. She knows in a situation like this, yeah, one side just has to take the L, has to take the injustice for the bigger picture and to move forward. But once more, yeah, that comes back round to the racial tension of the times and the very thing she's fighting for, you know, no longer wanting to be having to just put up with racial injustice, to take the hits. She wants to push back finally. So yeah, great maturity and willpower from Madi. And she has a great quote to sum it all up, to sum up all I just said really, and to tie in the title I chose. I will fight this thing rising up in me, eager to see more blood spilt today, and I will serve them by minding their future. and doing the hard thing that will lead to the outcome desired by all of us. And yeah, I think you can see John's impressed by her strength, and he tells her it won't happen again. And Madi asks if they can move forward, and he gives his word. She said her piece, she's ready to let bygones be bygones and move on. But then we cut to below deck at night, and Dobbs is getting a beating. This sort of, this punishment, it has a specific name. It's just where you sort of get rocks or maybe soap sometimes, I've seen in prison, sort of stuff. You beat your guy, whoever, you beat your victim with it. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. So with this, now there is a chance that Dooley's ordered this and Silver is unaware. I've honestly completely forgotten in terms of plot, if that is the case. But the way I read it now and the way I think it is, if I remember how the season ends as well, is Maddie's just made this point, let's move on, my guy will take the hit as much as I hate it. But Silver's made his own decision, he's not happy about that, he doesn't want to do that, and he's ordered this punishment on the quiet, just showing he is a very different leader to Madi. Yeah, it's just a small moment just to put a little blight on seemingly getting back to where they started this episode, and just to show Silver, I think, slipping into that darkness a little bit more, enjoying that power a little bit more. Again, on the chance I have misremembered all this wrong, I'll stop there and, and do that thing where I'm prattling about something I've just remembered completely wrong. That will be picked up again anyway, but I think that's what's going on. I think Silver ordered it, despite everything and despite the common sense from Madi, because he just can't let it go, because just that power and just that little bit of darkness. So yeah, between that and their final scene, some plot stuff goes down with Eleanor and Hornigold, and I'll come back to that. But DeGroot and Silver realise that they have been spotted, and a bit of panic ensues. Silver orders that they head to shore now to grab Flint and co. And DeGroot argues, because of course DeGroot argues, that's what DeGroot does. But otherwise, I think that's all the Silver and Madi discussion of the episode. All that remains for me to do is just bask in the greatness of Madi once more in giving her an MVP nomination, showing us and Silver her strength in her leadership, in keeping her emotions in check when on the inside she's, furious. The more we continue to see and learn about her, the more I like and respect her. Okay, so let's just do the one quick Max scene before we get into the kind of bulk of all the rescue mission. Okay, so I spoke a lot about Max last episode, so there's not a lot to go over. Her transition into Eleanor's role and her realising it last episode. And this episode, sadly, she fully kind of embraces it and just goes for it. But nothing too new to bring to the table discussion-wise. Just this little sort of scene here I just wanted to go over quick. So I spoke too soon about the sex scenes last episode, saying Eleanor's and Rogers was the only one of the season. I completely forgot about this one somehow. Interesting to see. This was the point I kind of just wanted to make for Max this episode. Max is never usually the one receiving. We've never seen that. She's the initiator, the top. She's pulling the strings. Even though we never saw it, I imagine it became a bit more of a fairer playing field for her and Anne, once trust was built and a bit of a bond formed. But I won't dwell on all that. It's just quite interesting, I think, in this moment. The player getting played. Well, not at all successfully, as Max points out. Georgia's not good at this, is she? She tries pulling a Max to get information from her. On Mrs. Mapleton's order, this will be, of course. And Max just works it out straight away. I mean, most would work it out straight away, but of course Max is. Max is just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I can't even. Maybe in realising now she's in a position where the games are now being played in her, even in moments of pleasure, she's going to have to keep her guard up now, is sort of what I'm getting from this. She tells Georgia wearily, she knows the games, she's played them all, quit it, basically, if you want to do this again. And so, Georgia leaves just as kind of Eleanor's arriving, and I love Eleanor's face. They kind of pass each other, and, she does a sort of double take. Again, the similarities are there for me. Not an accident, I don't think, that Mrs. Mapleton chose her. I think she might have got a smarter, a better go at the game otherwise. And maybe a redhead might have had more luck, but I don't know. Maybe not at this current time, bit too soon. But otherwise with Max, other than sort of, pointing that out and how people are trying to now play the player a little bit because of her position and where she is. there's not really a lot I kind of want to go over with Max in this episode. Otherwise, I'm just going to be going over very recently discussed ground again. So yeah, I will save the discussion she has with Eleanor in this scene for Jack's corresponding moment of Anne when we get to it. So yeah, let's just get into the rescue mission and the build-up, because yeah, this is the episode, isn't it? So yeah, we get a great opening scene with Vane and Flint, and they're in Miranda's house, and yeah, Vane is he's clearly restless and he's uncomfortable. We've never seen him in a house. He just, looks so out of place and awkward. Just a man that belongs on ships, in tents and taverns. I mean, he's going to say as much himself. We start, this is how the episode starts. We start by just focusing in on Flint in contemplation and just hearing this pretty irritating one note, and frustrated Flint's like, please stop. And we realise it's Vane. He's fiddling with some instrument. I'm not sure what it is. Some old-timey instrument. Yeah, low-key, that's quite a funny moment. I don't know, that always makes me laugh. Just like Flint is like a parent getting frustrated with a child that just keeps fiddling when all the parent's trying to do is just have a minute sort of peace in silence. Yeah, more great contrasting differences between characters joining for a common cause, like we've already discussed with Silver and Madi. Yeah, Vane's poking around sort of Miranda and Flint's things. He's not a material man at all. He can't really understand it. He sort of fiddles with a teacup and studies it a bit. And yet Flint asks him if he ever wanted these things, if he thought about settling down, a life after. Of course, we know from last season, when all was said and done, Flint wanted to go and quietly live in peace with Miranda. Something and I think he now knows, will never happen that way, or, it won't happen the way he wanted now. But he can't understand why that wouldn't be Vane's endgame. He couldn't understand why Vane wouldn't want it, and likewise, Vane can't understand why he does. So yeah, again, just showing us the differences in their motivations and endgames, and really preparing us, I think, for Vane's stand next episode. Until next episode, I'm not still ready to say the words. Yeah, Vane makes it clear he would resist that interest, and I hate when this show gets so real. It's depressing, which it actually does quite a lot. I try not to deepen modern politics too much. I think I've said before, they're all as bad as each other to me. But when Vane says, give us your submission and we will give you the comfort you need, well, damn, I felt that. Too real. I completely see where he's coming from, but of course, with Thomas, his own background before piracy, Flint has seen a whole other side to it that Vane hasn't. Just the Vane just doesn't know and doesn't understand. And Flint knows it's not quite as straightforward as all that. But again, yeah, I just love their scenes together, full stop. But they are just so, in this moment, including Anne as well in a little bit, they all want the kind of an end goal. But they all have different reasons for it. It is around this point that Anne enters from another room. I know Black Sails just doesn't do banal conversation scenes, especially in these later seasons. Everything that's said is for something, plot, character development. It's not wasted, any of it, but part of me just really wishes that every so often we just got a scene in there that doesn't mean anything. No stakes, no particularly smart conversation. Like, just Flint, Vane and Anne discussing sleeping arrangements the night before, or Vane and Anne just having a little snoop around around Miranda's house. Just something like that. Yeah, I guess it probably all leads back to my only real gripe with season 3 and 4, in that I just wish we had a little bit more time. Another season, or maybe they'd both been 12 episodes long. A nice compromise that would have been, just to pace a few things. Maybe get a couple more moments, like I'm wishing, with characters that rarely interact. But yeah, anyway, that is a regular wish I've spoken before, that obviously will never happen now. But yeah, anyway, Anne enters and she sits down and she's clearly anxious that there's been no news yet. And yet Flint reassures her things are being done. It's essential they find the right route, and obviously we'll pop back to that plot point in a bit from the other side. But yeah, Flint's sort of talking about it mostly from the point of the cash. But as Anne points out, if this goes wrong, he loses what? A war, money. What I got ain't so easy to lose. But Flint has a good counter and makes a good point. He says this isn't an either-or proposition. They all stand to lose something, and they're all in it for their own reasons. He wants the gold, she wants her partner, but for this to work, they have one chance, and they must stick together and toe the line. And yeah, Anne can understand that. She can respect that. She knows she can't do this on her own. I love that Flint isn't trying to talk around, you know, isn't trying to get her on board with what he's doing or anything. He knows what she wants, and he knows what he wants. I think once upon a time, that may have been something he may have tried to do. But yeah, he can understand now that she's just there for Jack, just as I think Anne completely understands that Flint's just there for the gold. And as we see with Vane, he's somewhere in the middle in his motivations, with concern with both for Jack and the gold. But yeah, that's quite interesting. You know, they're all in it for their different reasons. They're working together to achieve the hard thing. Yeah, at this point, Featherstone's guy approaches and he comes to tell them the route. And yeah, but yeah, that's a great little scene, that one. I like that one. Good opening scene. Okay, some great scenes now with Jack and Woods Rogers, which is the main chunk of the next sort of part of the discussion. So yeah, Jack begins in his cell. He's made a friend, a little mouse. Just a fun little Jack scene of him nattering away to this mouse. I've not wrote much down from it, you know, it's not too much to deepen for me. But yeah, I love that he's essentially telling this guy not to settle, to aim for bigger things, obviously sort of a reflection on himself. He says, today the crumbs, tomorrow the loaf. Someday perhaps the whole boulangerie. I'm so used to it now, I don't even hear the accent Toby Schmitz uses for Jack. It's just part of what I hear now. But yeah, part of me does wish I could just go in to marvel at it again for the first time. It's so fantastic, and sometimes you forget about it, and then you hear him say a word, and you're like, I love the way he said that. Anyway, it's around this point that the cell door opens. The mouse flees and Jack is escorted to the carriage. It doesn't take him long when his chains aren't untied and he's not let go, you know, and he sees that Woods Rogers is accompanying him, for him to realise he's not being released. And yeah, Woods Rogers fills him in on, you know, on what's gone down as he gets in. Woods Rogers says, there is no progress without awful sacrifice. What a line. What a perfect line for this man to utter and just not understand. You know, and we can go back to Madi and the discussion just had about her with that line. Yeah, and Woods Rogers says it as if it's some sort of consolation to Jack. But then again, yeah, he will care little for consoling Jack, as we're going to see. You know, we're going to see that Woods Rogers is so indifferent to Jack in this sort of scenes. He's so indifferent to worrying about any rescue attempt being successful. He's completely underestimated any resistance, and so yeah, he'll be eating some humble pie come the end of the episode, and Jack will enjoy mixing up a few ingredients in front of him momentarily. Yeah, and it's at this point that Woods Rogers makes the mistake. Well, it's not a mistake, as it wouldn't have mattered either way, but I guess in informing Jack that Anne is okay, it prepares Jack a little bit better mentally, and it does give him a little bit of hope. You know, and he can plan things. So yeah, maybe not the smartest from Woods Rogers, but obviously, yeah, he don't know. Jack and Anne, he don't know, but he's about to. So yeah, their journey continues. They're chatting somewhat civilly, and Rogers has kind of filled him in on what will happen when he gets there. And yeah, and Jack's chatting about something and sort of starts off by saying, if I'm in Havana in a day or two, and yeah, I think he talks about not being able to speak the language, and Woods Rogers sort of half, you know, tries to put his mind at ease by telling him whatever it is, it will be quick. Like, yeah, cheers for that. And then he sort of catches himself mid-sentence and is like, I'm sorry, if? He caught that well, to be fair to him. Such a subtle word from Jack, it could have really easily been missed, I think. But Jack being Jack, he wants Woods Rogers to lead him into explaining. And so now I can call back to Max and Eleanor's scene. Yeah, just the two people who know Anne best realising and explaining to both Eleanor and Woods Rogers that when it comes to Jack, Anne won't stop. Anne won't stop. As soon as Eleanor informs Max that the cash is en route with Jack, and she asks about Anne, you know, she's dreading to hear the words, Anne is dead. Anne died. She fought back. There was no choice. You know, that is what she is certain is coming. So when Eleanor tells her she left unharmed, and Max realises straight away something is up. Damn, Max! Shush! Stop talking! Shh! But again, yeah, as discussed, all this in terms of Max, especially last episode, sadly, she's fully committed now in this moment. And yeah, once she realises here, there's no second thoughts for Anne or Jack. It's all business, unfortunately. And yeah, Eleanor doesn't quite understand what she's getting at. Why would Anne have fought off 8 armed men? She wouldn't have stand a chance. And Max sort of puts it plainly. And yeah, it gives me goosebumps every time she says this. 8, you could have sent 1,000 men. It would not have deterred her. I'm a soppy romantic at heart. And while in real life, yeah, you don't want these sort of extreme obstacles and, you know, these extreme cases. But in fiction, I will take these grand statements, these gestures, to make the point every time. But yeah, Max has well and truly turned, and now Eleanor understands, oh, some shit might be going down. And yeah, Vane and Max are probably the only two characters prior to this aware of just how close Jack and Anne's bond really is. But now Eleanor and soon to be Woods Rogers are a part of that club now. So yeah, back to the other scene, and it's Jack's turn now to big up Anne for Woods Rogers. He's casual about it, you know, says as long as Anne is alive, there is a chance she will frustrate. Amused almost, still underestimating all of it. You know, Woods Rogers asks how. And Jack says, oh, everything and anything in her power, I imagine, up to and including walking out in the middle of the road ahead of us just to be run over by your horses in the hope of slowing you down for even a moment. God damn it. Maybe the type of love I seek isn't healthy. But it's some of the most powerful romantic... No, romantic it's not quite the right word for Anne and Jack. But it's just one of the most powerful kind of statements about love. I think, yeah, I freaking love Jack and Anne, what they have. Just such a bond. I love it. I love them, and I love anyone bigging up them. But yeah, Woods Rogers says he's fascinated by how stubborn you people are. You expect the unlikeliest of outcomes because you prefer them. You expect the world to become what you want it to be, despite all the evidence to the contrary. Pot, kettle, black is pretty much my deepening of that statement, Mr. Woods Rogers. And he tells Jack this won't play out the way he thinks. He's held a number of routes secret, and he says no one knows which one they're taking. So yeah, the odds are really against them. So yeah, we'll come back to the pair of them in a moment. Just a really quick plot scene. So yeah, Eleanor and Max are trying to tell this Chamberlain guy something could be brewing. He's just being an obnoxious dick. He's clearly also completely underestimated any resistance or competence in Nassau. He clearly doesn't see women as equals. He doesn't respect Eleanor. Despite them both knowing and telling him exactly about how this is going to play out, he's rude to Eleanor, says he knows the governor has put his trust in you. Alright, that was pretty funny, I'll give him that. But yeah, Eleanor is clearly getting frustrated, and she drops an F-bomb, which is, it's been a while. Yeah, she's been holding herself in check really well since those sort of early first couple of episodes of the season. You know, holding it in around Woods Rogers. I even said she's changed her voice a little bit and playing the part. Yeah, again, I think it's just showing that old instincts and habits are there still. And yeah, he informs her about the multiple routes and that no one knows which one it is that they're taking. And Max says she knows. That's the first, you know, she's been quiet listening, but this is the first time she speaks up. Yeah, she knows. She says a boy in her employee saw. And he asks if the boy would sell that knowledge. And Max says no, but, you know, I don't know if she believes that necessarily. But obviously she's not going to give that away yet because that won't look good for her. Yeah, and he dismisses them, swearing back at Eleanor. So yeah, almost as a last resort, Eleanor goes to see Hornigold. Tells him if they can't work together, everything could be lost. Of course it's frosty between them, and yeah, of course he's also a pompous, annoying twat in this moment. She says she suspects Flint is also involved, and he points out he watched the Walrus leave this morning. And Eleanor, yeah, you know, he's being vague, mysterious, just a dick. And Eleanor's had enough of these arrogant men. And yeah, it looks like they're getting nowhere. But he says he's seen glimpses of light from a distance. It could be nothing, but it could be a spyglass. He says they have their history, but his and Flint's is bigger. Bigger fish to fry for him. So yeah, Eleanor is setting up a potential backup here, which Woods Rogers later commends her on, if Max's concerns play out, which they do, which we will now get into. So yeah, a great Jack and Woods Rogers scene, just their battle of wits, and this verbal tennis match that they've had going since they met continues. We get some Jack background. Woods Rogers again, he couldn't care less as Jack starts talking. Some time's obviously passed and they've been kind of just in their own thoughts. He's been reading, and yeah, Jack just starts talking away, and he's sort of amused. He kind of gives up his book after a while. So yeah, we learn Jack's father was a tailor in Leeds, and Calico is mentioned. Of course, that's the writers tying in the real Jack Rackham's nickname, Calico Jack. Yeah, and the family business started to die out, and his father started to drink. And yeah, when he was 13, Jack set to rebuild what had gone wrong in his father's business after he died. Until one day, debtors turned up at his door, debts his father owned for drink, debts Jack couldn't ever afford to pay. Would have seen Jack imprisoned, and the debts only discharged after hard labour working at the production of, Jack builds it up, you guessed it, textiles. And yeah, Woodes Rogers amused at the irony, as Jack is making a point of highlighting, and Jack plays his serve back. He quotes Woodes Rogers, he says, "You people capable of accepting the world as it is, says the man to whom the world handed everything. If this is defeat for me, then know this. You and I were neck and neck in this race until the end. But Jesus, did I make up a lot of ground to catch you." Started from the bottom, now we're here. It's what Jack is saying, basically. You know, in my world, I've been just as successful, but that's not where I started. I got no leg up, you know, I got no handouts, nothing but debts that had nothing to do with me, no fault of my own. I was a kid, you know. And yeah, Woodes Rogers tries to counter, asks if he thinks the world has been so kind to him. And Jack says sort of simply, wealthy family, inherited daddy's shipping business, married rich, I read your book. And this is it. This is the line. This is the line that tells you so much to come from Woodes Rogers. Tells you that this man presents himself exactly as he wants you to see, as benefits him at the time, but that there's something much darker under there. He says, but there are things you leave out your book. You leave out the book because if it got around polite society what you're capable of when pushed, they might stop inviting you to their dinner parties. All you know about me is what I want you to know. That's scary. That is scary. Considering what's going to happen in season 4. Yeah, maybe quote of the episode for me, that one. Yeah, Jack's not buying it though in this moment. He's sort of taking it on the chin. But yeah, sadly, not too many episodes away now. You know, that underestimating of Woodes Rogers will come back again to haunt him. How the next moment sort of plays out and that comes back to haunt him a little bit. But yeah, I do love that in this moment, Woodes Rogers thinks he's had the last word. And then suddenly the riders are spotted and called. And I just love the fantastic, I told you so, kind of look that Jack gives him. Just such a smug look. Yeah. Really fantastic scene. Some more rounds to play for these two. Next one won't be half as much fun to watch. But yeah, for now, I think that round probably goes to Jack. Just about. And so we get to the rescue mission. And as I say, just one of the most exhilarating action pieces in the whole show. It's mostly practical as well, I believe, from little things I've heard behind the scenes and things like that. Very few cuts. Yeah, shot really well. On seeing the distraction and knowing that help is now on the way, Jack tries to take out Woodes Rogers. Again, he'll go over his failure in this moment a little bit next season. But yeah, Woodes Rogers is no backwater magistrate, remember? And yeah, we see for the first time he can really hold his own. So yeah, once he frees himself, Jack takes a bit of a battering. And yeah, I can't discredit anyone acting in self-defense, but if danger hadn't been so close, I think Jack's heading to Havana with some real, you know, some broken bones in retaliation to this. In the least, broken bones. So Vane, you know, let's just stick a pretty firework on his picture now for his MVP nomination for this badass moment. Yeah, he shoots the wheel off the axes and the carriage with Woodes Rogers on the roof and Jack inside. Everything goes flying, including the two humans. In one swift moment, Vane jumps off his horse and he takes out one of the guards with a shot. Just, yeah, absolutely badass from Vane. Absolutely badass moment. And yeah, in all the carnage and waiting to see what's happened, Anne comes forward and hesitantly looks into the carriage. It's touch and go a moment. Jack is in a real crumpled heap and not looking like he's moving. But he gives a very small gesture with his hand. He probably knows she's right there looking at him. And just in a moment of uncontained relief and joy, Anne pretty much jumps into the carriage to kiss him. No, I'm not going to cry on a review. And yeah, and then of course with great comic relief, only Jack Toby Schmitz can do, we just get a ow. Yeah, really vulnerable moment with Anne. Never seen her kind of act so passionately in the moment like that with other people around as well. I mean we've seen her act passionately in anger, but yeah, you know, a really lovely moment for her. And yeah, my favourite double act are back together. And yeah, and for their parts in the rescue, Anne and Flint will also get MVP nominations. So Flint loads the cash, obviously priorities and all that, and yeah, and Anne and Vane are trying to loosen Jack, get his chains off, he's still chained, and Vane tells Flint to leave them to it, to go and secure the cash. Sensible, and yeah, you don't need to tell Flint that twice. But yeah, Vane's staying to help his boy. So yeah, just Ranger crew left now, and yeah, so finally he's able to free Jack, and yeah, it looks like they're almost clear. Anne and an injured Jack are loaded onto a horse, and we see men approaching fast. And yeah, Vane is ready to jump on his horse to follow, but as he does, we just get a chilling shot of Woods Rogers rising in the background, shoots him, you know, such a terrifying shot, just to see him coming from nowhere. He's also a little bit out of focus as well, which is, you know, really done, adds to the kind of tension, because you can see him, you can see something's happening, but it's not quite clear until it's too late. Yeah, you know, obviously he's hurt, he's on the floor, but he just yells at Anne and Jack to just go, get going, you know, and yeah, what a tough moment for them too. I've seen comments, you know, in discussion and on various things, people upset at the decision of having them leave Vane here, that it's a bad writing choice, you know, something Jack and Anne would never do, but they can see the support coming. Jack and Anne aren't stupid, you know, they can see all this support coming, all these men coming. They know it's a lost cause and they stand no chance to fight. Yeah, at least 10 men approaching. There would have been no point in any of it, you know, what they just done, all of it, and for them both to go and die in this moment or also be taken prisoner. So yeah, they have no choice and they know it as well. And a point, you know, Jack makes in a moment as well is a factor. But yeah, really tough moment for them both having to leave him. And yeah, Vane, legend that he is, he doesn't give up easily. But again, yeah, we can see Woods Rogers can also really hold his own. Let's not forget, you know, give him credit where it's due. He's just been strangled and flipped over underneath a carriage a couple of times. So, but I think with a bit more time, and if Max had kept her trap shut, I think Vane is probably getting away and winning that fight just about. But yeah, sadly, our captain is outnumbered, and yeah, unfortunately, it is the beginning of the end. But yeah, phenomenal scenes, phenomenal action scenes. So then Jack and Anne return to Flint on the beach, and they inform him about Vane, and yeah, that they had to run. And yeah, Flint says he'll go find him, and he gets ready to jump straight back on the horse. Another strong reason to include him in the MVP discussion. When Billy protests, Flint tells him Charles Vane swinging over Nassau is a statement we cannot afford to be made. Been a lot of parallels last couple of episodes between a lot of characters, but of course Vane did the same thing for him almost around the same point last season, but of course the circumstances are very different in this, very different now, as Billy points out. And yeah, it's sadly a good point, a logical point. He tells Flint he's about to get the war he wanted, and he's the only one who can marshal it. And yeah, he's correct, you know, and Jack says he's right. And his point, you know, he says, if Charles knew we were even contemplating jeopardising the grander effort to save him, he'd kill us all. And yeah, another reason why they honoured his shouts to, you know, leave him. He didn't betray Teach a second time, just to not see this through at the end, and, you know, for them to dismiss everything and give everything up just to save him. So yeah, Billy, he steps up to the task. He says, gives him a couple of men, and he'll go and address the situation by stirring resentment on the street, reminding them that Charles Vane is the best of them. He says his parents were agitators, you know, reminded us of that. And if we are to win this war, it might be exactly what we need. And yeah, I love this from Billy. Although the power he will gain in leadership, in this new leadership, will lead to some really frustrating Billy chats to come in season 4, it's a great initiative in this moment. So Billy Bones is also going to get an MVP nomination. And he says, by the time I'm through, the governor won't be able to hang Vane out of fear of losing the street. But we know, sadly, it's not the governor they need to be worrying about right now. Not the governor at all, because the governor would agree with him, because he's going to say pretty much the same thing. And yet Flint sees the walrus approaching, and he gives Billy the go-ahead. So yeah, Billy is off to go do his own thing now, which, yeah, is sort of not the beginning of the end of Billy, but yeah, things are going to get tense with Billy next season. And yeah, I could go into more with Vane, but I think I'd rather just get it all out next episode and give him his dues and any remaining thoughts, and why he's doing what he's doing. Let's just do all that next episode. But yeah, on rewatch, I think it's quite obvious this is a setup for what's to come next episode, the inevitable. And this last scene, to just quickly discuss especially, I don't think there's any doubt it wasn't going to happen, even though a part of you is still probably hoping at this point, I hope they do rescue him, I hope it does all come through. But anyway, before that last scene I want to discuss with Eleanor, there is a quick scene where Eleanor reports to Max that 16 more of the men have fallen ill. Again, more good setup for next episode and, what's to go on with Woods Rogers. They're worrying about what's going down on the exchange, and Max says there's nothing more dangerous than an unfamiliar enemy. The call's coming from inside the house, Max. Wake up, girl. Sorry, alright, I have to have a moan at her, but, I love her, but wake up. But what she means and has realised that, if they're unsuccessful, then their secrets are no longer their own, and they have a spy among them. Of course, as she'll soon learn, it's Adele and Featherstone, which, will lead to some more interesting Max discussion. And, we'll get her back on side a little bit with me. So, this is when Woods Rogers returns injured and they realise they were right. And while I'm not cheering for them, I hope Chamberlain felt severely embarrassed for that. Okay, so last kind of big Eleanor scene. Eleanor, she continues to be an enigma. So Eleanor, alone with Woods Rogers now, he informs her Charles Vane is in their fort cells. And she is completely distracted. She's not listening to what he's saying, completely disassociating. He can see she's not in there in the moment. Cautiously, he says the challenges ahead for both of them are grave. And he needs to know that he can rely on her. Asks if she understands his concerns. And asks her where she is in this moment. He fears her temptation, knows Vane is the embodiment of that temptation. When he's talking to her, what is he feeling? I've always taken it to mean he's fearing exactly what ends up happening. Her anger leads her to act rash in his absence and get her revenge that in turn pisses up his plans a little bit. But after really looking into these guys this watch, I don't know if it's that simple from either of them. He has seen that passion back in her, the last couple of episodes on returning to Nassau. He pointed it out last episode. Maybe he is generally worried she will end up plotting something against him with Vane, or feel some sort of romantic or, some sort of connection like that return. And what I've never thought about myself, is she worried about that happening? A very small part of her. Well, let's go through her reply on him saying, if she has any regard and respect to tell him the truth. She confesses revenge was all that was on her mind when she first joined with him, as we've discussed. Not her charges, not piracy, Nassau, all of that. She was consumed by one thought and one thought only. Opportunity for revenge against her father's killer and the execution of Charles Vane. Very robot-like with no emotion. She says, I know you now. I trust you now. I'm devoted to you now. I love you now. So I will tell you the absolute truth about how I'm going to react when faced with the thing sitting in the cell. I honestly don't know. Again, this just circles back to Eleanor just being such a hard character to get into the mind of, to always understand her motives at kind of any given time, We'd have to go back to a lot of loneliness and forced independence at a young age. So I don't want to do all that today again with Eleanor, but I think the short side of it is I don't completely buy what she's saying here now in this watch through. I did, I'm remembering this, I did knowing where these last few episodes with her was heading and from where she started out this season. But she has found a bit of a groove and a bit of a passion, like I said last episode and I've mentioned here. He's had questions about her, and I think she's seen a couple of small moments in him that's raised some questions about him. Small things, but little niggles in the back of her mind that, conflict with what she kind of really has always wanted for Nassau and knows that's really best for it. And going back to what I was saying last episode again, how she really wants to change, I think that plays a bigger part in her decision than maybe any revenge on her father. I think she's maybe just using that as a little bit of a safety net now, a kind of backup. Sure, they sorted it out somewhat in their final scene, but a lot of years of hurt and rejection for her. I don't know how to sum this brain fart up, but anyone that cares to share their thoughts on Eleanor's motivations here, now at this point, do you buy completely what she's selling? What does she really want with Vane? What is her motivations? Yeah, I think a conversation probably better to pick up on next episode on what exactly leads her to make her decision and how the rashness of that is ultimately the first nail in her coffin. Yeah, I could really get into Eleanor here, but yeah, let's put her on ice until we pick up again next episode so I can remind myself what goes on in her scenes then with a more recent watch. But other than that, yeah, putting her on ice and Vane on ice, I think, yeah, that's another banger. Another great episode, but I think that's probably all of it. So yeah, let's get that MVP sorted.
Last item.
Okay, yeah, so really busy batch today. So yeah, I might have sort of spoiled a couple of episodes ago that as great as the rescue mission is and how they each play their part in leading up to it and during, I think Anne, Vane and Flint and Jack, if I nominated him, I can't remember. Either way, I think they all cancel each other out a bit, as it would be a bit unfair, I think, to give one over the other. It's either give them all one, which gets a bit messy for my count, or let's give someone else a chance today, I think is a good kind of compromise. And so then, yeah, it becomes out of Billy or Maddie. Decent as a little Billy moment it is, I think this is a great, deserving opportunity to get Maddie finally off the mark. Yeah, really seeing what she's capable of this episode. You know, what a great, patient and respected leader she is. How she's willing to see the bigger picture and swallow petty revenge and have pride. Hello, Eleanor, are you watching? This is how it's done. Yeah, I've got no qualms about getting Maddie off the mark with her first MVP win. Okay, got through that the second time. I don't know if it was quite with the oomph of the first one, but I did my best for you. Okay, so yeah, with that said... I'm going to get this edited, hopefully with sound now, and yeah, and I will be on to episode 9, the penultimate episode of the season. It's a tough one, I feel obviously Vane and probably a little bit of Eleanor again are going to dominate the conversation, but I cannot actually remember anything else that happens in the episode with the other characters. Or maybe a little bit of Billy, actually. I can remember some of Billy's, but I can't remember what Flint and Silver are doing in this episode. Gonna be interesting, but yeah, emotional one. But yeah, I will see you very soon for that. So yeah, thank you for watching. Take care. See you on the flip side. Peace out.